All right, let's go ahead and get started. First off, I want to thank everyone for coming to this session. This is all about the Microsoft Teams app platform. You guys have probably heard a lot of noise and a lot of really great discussions over the last couple of days around Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business. So this session is all about the Microsoft Teams developer platform. Building apps. So we're going to spend the first little bit talking about apps in the Teams platform. We're going to talk about the value that it brings to your organization. And to help do that, we've got a couple of guests from Micro Focus that'll come up on stage and talk about the solution they've built and integrated with Teams. And then we're going to spend the latter portion deep diving on the actual platform. We'll go through some of the capabilities and start to scratch the surface a bit about how you can build an app for Teams. I am Larry Jin. I am a lead program manager for the extensibility and developer platform for Teams. I'm really happy that you guys can make the time to come out today. And towards the end, one of the new things that I'll show you guys as well is the new Office 365 IT management experience for controlling which third-party apps are enabled or disabled for your tenant. So let's dive right in. If you guys have seen some of the other Office extensibility sessions, this slide will look familiar. And so, we think about Office as having these multiple developer canvases. We've got documents, so Word, PowerPoint, Excel, conversations, pages, so SharePoint sites, for instance. And all of this is hooked into the intelligence of the Microsoft Graph. And front and center here is conversations. So this is Microsoft Teams, of course, and that's what we're going to be focused on today. So I think most of the folks in the audience should already be familiar with Teams. If not, I recommend you guys try it. It's a great product. It is the hub for teamwork in Office 365. It really is front and center in terms of being that collaborative canvas for teams, high-velocity, modern teams to get work done. It has chat, calling, and meeting. It's integrated with the Office 365 apps like OneNote, Planner, SharePoint, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, so on and so forth. It's customizable and extensible. We know that it's really important for today's modern teams to have access to the tools and the workflows that they require to get their work done, and being able to bring that into Teams is core to our vision and mission. And of course, that's going to be the main focus of today's discussion. And then lastly, being part of Office 365, it provides the security, compliance, and manageability that you come to know and trust from the Office suite. So let's talk a little bit about the Teams app platform. And to do that, I'm actually going to dive into a demo of Teams. I'm not going to be doing a full breadth demo. I'm going to be focused more on the third-party extensibility, so some of the great integrations and apps that we've had our partners deliver. So we'll start off in this team called Sales Operations. You can see I'm a member of multiple teams here, and I've got my channel set up. So this channel called Contoso Resellers. Now, we've got some chat conversations going on here, but I want to draw your attention to the tabs at the top. So for those that are not familiar with tabs, tabs are a way to bring embedded content into a channel conversation to enable the team to collaborate around it. And so here you can see we have all the files of our team. But I want to talk about some of these additional tabs. So the marketing plan. This is actually a Trello tab that shows the tasks for the team. And this is pulling directly from Trello. And this is their complete native experience embedded as a tab. And this is one of our richest forms of extensibility that I'll talk about a little bit more once we get into the technical details. Next, I want to show an engagement survey. So this is powered by SurveyMonkey, which is a partner that allows pulling in your engagement surveys for your product and actually having that here as a tab so you can go and see how people have responded to that survey. The next tab I'll show is powered by Adobe Sign. And it looks like I've timed out, so just quickly sign into this. Adobe is one of our newer partners that have delivered two integrations for us. One is Sign, and the other is Creative Cloud. And what's great is in this tab, I can actually not only send out a signature for someone on the team to sign, but I can also manage all of the agreements that have already gone out for signatures with others. And it's great because you've got that content here in context, and that's the power with Teams, is to be able to bring that information together. If you click on this plus here, you'll also be able to access and set up the other tabs. And you can see here that we have a pretty wide variety of tab apps with more coming. A couple of the recent additions that we've just brought in, Jira and Bitbucket by Atlassian. hopping back into the conversation for a second, you can see here that we've been able to take advantage of some of the bot interactions in the channel. So Polly is one of our partners that provides a sort of micro-survey and polling bot. And so you can see here that we created a poll about where we'd like to have our next venue for an event. And I can click on one of these options to vote. In this case, I've already voted for Seattle, but you can see I can change my vote to San Jose, and that content updates dynamically inline. In addition to interacting with bots, you can also use third-party apps to help you write your message and bring content into your conversation. So what I mean by that is, let's start a new message here. Now, if I wanted to go and pull up some information from an external source, rather than having to switch to a web browser, grab a link, and bring that in, I can now use a new set of apps called Compose extensions to go bring that information in. So I could say, check out this Ignite news article. And you'll notice here that along the bottom, we have these new icons that have appeared. These are apps that I've favorited that are going to help me compose my message. So if I tap on this button for Bing News, it's going to start to pull up some articles. And I can type in Ignite. And you can see here we have a lot of articles about Ignite, and I can drop that into the conversation. So it's really awesome because this really brings that information into your day-to-day workflows and really reduce that context switching. Similarly, I can also do the same thing with Trello, and I can actually use a keyboard-based command to do that. So if I search for marketing, we get back a marketing card, and I can drop that into the conversation as well. So creating these really low-friction, high-velocity workflows by pulling in apps that your users know and love. I want to talk a little bit about personal apps. So far, you've seen how apps can help transform workflows inside of team conversations. If you notice here on the left, we have this Apps tab. And if I click on that, this flyout that appears shows all of the apps that I use personally and I have installed into my personal context. So I might use Assistant Zoom.ai to help manage my calendar. I might use Planner to track tasks, and Polly to create polls. If I click on this Adobe Creative Cloud app, I get this personal experience. Now think about the personal app experience as being the user's sort of personal productivity hub. You know, there's a set of apps that your users use on a regular basis. In this case, it's Adobe Creative Cloud, but it could also be, you know, an HR benefits app that your organization builds and deploys. And we'll talk a little bit about building custom apps for your organization later on. So you can see here that I've used the bot conversation to search and pull up for content from Adobe Creative Cloud, so some stock images. If I click on the Adobe Stock tab, I can also search for stock images from here. And so it's great that we've brought together that conversational interface as well as the tab interface for browsing. If I want to discover more apps, there's a link here, and that pops open the full Teams app gallery. And so you'll get full access to all of the apps in Teams, and I'll be able to search, sort, and filter right here. And then towards the end of the discussion, I'll show you guys from the IT admin perspective how to actually control and manage which apps are enabled for your end users. And that actually changes the experience based on those settings. So hopefully now you've seen a little bit about what third-party apps look like in Teams, and that'll help set things up as we go into a deeper dive around starting to actually build those things. So talking about the value, apps are part of teamwork. Today's modern teams require these tools to be at their fingertips without context switching, without having to remember, hey, where do I find that information? How do I go and pull out that sales opportunity and bring that into the workflow? And we're really looking to create those opportunities for collaboration around external content, and thereby enabling your organizations and users to make decisions and take action faster. You guys have already seen a small sample of all the apps that we have to offer. We have over 150 great apps in Teams by some really wonderful partners. And one partner that I'd like to talk a little bit about is Micro Focus. They've built a really awesome ChatOps solution for Teams. And to actually talk about their company a little bit and to introduce their solution and the value that it brings, I'd like to introduce our friends over here, Rahul Tripathi, the VP of Product for Micro Focus. and Haraki Rashidi as well.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Larry. So how many folks in the room have heard of Micro Focus? None, right? So I'm not surprised, because as a new company, we are barely 26 days old. So on September 1, we listed our stock on New York Stock Exchange. But the new team, the new company is built of two companies which have a very rich heritage in the IT industry. So Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Software, which I'm sure many of you must have heard of, and then Micro Focus based in UK. So together we merged the two companies to form the 7th largest pure play software company in the world. So the company has $4.5 billion in revenue, about 20,000 people, and it combines the collective 30 years of HPE software and 40 years of Micro Focus into the new company. So we are very, very excited about the company. And the portfolio is very broad. And you'll see how managing this broad portfolio with Microsoft Teams becomes really easy with what we have been doing. So from a portfolio perspective, this shouldn't be a surprise. This is the kind of tools you deal with in a large-scale enterprise IT environment, starting with DevOps. So tools like Load Runner, Application Lifecycle Management, Serena. On the IT operations management side, the service management automation for monitoring operations bridge, for server provisioning, data center automation, and mainframe COBOL kind of solutions all the way to cloud solutions. On the cloud side, our hybrid cloud management tools allow you to manage multiple clouds. Late-spin solutions allow you to migrate your workloads from on-prem servers onto the cloud environment. And from a security perspective, solutions like ArcSight for security information management, Voltage for data encryption, Fortify for secure code development, NetIQ for access management, and then for information governance, things like Digital Safe for archiving and retrieval for compliance reasons. And of course, on the Linux and open source side, you must have heard of SUSE. So SUSE is part of Micro Focus company as well. And then everything is in this foundation of our big data analytics platform, powered by Vertica, which is a real-time database, and IDLE, which is our big data analytics platform. So all these tools run in a typical large-scale enterprise IT environment. So how does it link to Teams? So as a developer, sometimes you're trying to promote your code into production, and it fails. As an end user, you're trying to get your VPN working. There are issues with that. As an IT admin, you're trying to upgrade your servers. There are issues with that. And whenever those issues happen, these becomes fire drills. You have many people to involve, many tools to involve. The result is you spend a lot of time trying to figure this out. War room situations become really painful situations. And once you have taken a sigh of relief after one problem, it's never a repetitive solution. Next time around, the problem hits, again, the same people get in the room, same tools, you figure it out and go on, right? This is the story of a typical large-scale enterprise IT environment. And what it needs is a smarter way to deal with these incidents. Assembling people and tools together more effectively, very quickly, so you can start troubleshooting these problems. And after these problems have been solved, being able to reuse them, reuse the solutions, so allow you to solve these problems faster in the long run. So this is where we have used MS Teams technology and some of our own IP in building this ChatOps solution. And let me invite Rocky Rashidi to take you through what ChatOps is and give you a short demo of the solution as well.
Thank you, Rahul. So first, let me get a raise of hands. How how many of you guys in the room have heard about ChatOps? Heard about it, know about it? Not a lot of people. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Of course, there you go. So what is ChatOps? ChatOps is as much of a cultural change as it is a technology change. Really, what you're doing is you're bringing in the work you're already doing, and you're putting it in line in the context of the conversations you're already having. So think about it. The work you're already doing, you're not doing additional work, you're not doing extra work. And the conversations are taking place right now. It's just they're taking place in many different locations. They're everywhere, on email, chat, IM, text messages, meeting notes. What we want to do is we want to bring all of it into one place. And that's what Teams allows us to do, exactly that. So how does the flow look like? Well, what's the whole, I guess you want to call it the model, a topology. What does it look like? Well, you have your end users. As Rahul mentioned, these could be help desks. It could be IT operations folks. It could be developers or even line of business customers. They interface and they work inside of a collaboration tool, in this case being MS Teams. We use the power of MS Teams, and now we connect with chatbots in the middle. They're your liaison. Think of them as a digital worker. Think of them as your buddy, the buddy down the cube working with you. And now the chatbots connect to various different IT operations management applications. In this case, being our ITOM suites. We have 5 ITOM suites up there. Data center automation, hybrid cloud management, operations bridge, ITSMA, and network operations management. Now, these are the applications that really exist at the heart of the ChatOps process. They do the heavy lifting. The bots provide accessibility and intelligence. So let me talk about these suites a little bit, just to get you guys familiar that really the bots are behind the scenes using the power of these suites. We have our hybrid cloud management suite, which allows continuous delivery and deployment of IT services. Our DCA, Data Center Automation Suite, provides full lifecycle of bare metal, VM, operating systems, as well as now containers. Our Operations Bridge Suite provides monitoring and remediation by using the power of big data analytics, network operations management, end-to-end full lifecycle network management, as well as our ITSMA suite, which essentially provides self-service, intelligent fulfillment, and support processes. So before I get into the demo, I want to tell you guys, well, why Teams? Why did we choose to partner with Microsoft and deploy these chatbots and our ChatOps process on top of Teams? Very simple. Collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. Teams is what allows everybody, all the stakeholders, as Rahul mentioned in the case of IT War Room, to come into one place, have the conversation in one place, and work in that exact same place as they're talking. The context is right then and there. The files you share, anything you pull in. You have tabs for SharePoint. It's all right then and there for you. As well as the platform, a rich, extendable platform that has features such as interactive cards, such as tabs, such as SharePoint. It's all integrated, it's all right there, and you have the full power of Office sitting behind you. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the demo. So let's see what we can show you guys and get you guys excited. All right, so the use case I'm going to walk you guys through is just what we talked about, is our IT War Room, major incident management. And I'm going to talk to you guys about how we're going to do this using ChatOps. All good? All good? So here we are in one of the teams. This would be a network infrastructure management or an application monitoring channel. This is where various users are, and this is where our Ops Bridge bot, as you can see, posts an event into the room. Perfect. Posts an event into the room stating that something is wrong. One of our databases, we can't write to it anymore, and we have tons of transactions backing up into the queue. All right. Well, the folks that are in the room, they see this. They see what's going on. So what do? We have to start collaborating. They start messaging each other, and essentially your L0 guys start doing your basic triage, your basic troubleshooting. So in this case, we want to see if this thing is even alive. If the database is running, can we hit it? So we run a simple ping. Now, normally when you're troubleshooting, what do? You got to switch screens, log out, log in, SSH, run the command, come back, paste the information. The formatting gets all messed up. But in this case, we don't have to do it. Remember, we said we work where we're talking. So we can hit the server right then and there using the power of our OpsBridge chatbot running on top of our OpsBridge suite, as I mentioned before. The information is processed and rendered beautifully within Teams in one of the cards. All right, so now we know the server is up and running. Great, we can reach it. So next, we want to see if, well, common sense stuff, is a disk full? Am I not writing to the disk because I'm out of space? Same thing, you run a disk check, comes back saying space is not an issue. So at this point, sorry about that. Went out. So at this point, we can hit the server. The disk space is not an issue. So now we kind of hit a dead end. At least our L0 guys have hit a dead end. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually escalate this ticket to help desk. And we do this using our OpsBridge chatbot again. The chatbot creates a ticket, creates an incident within our help desk application. Everything that we see here, the context, everything is passed. So there is no more duplicacy of work. There's nothing else to do. Now, once this ticket is created, our incident manager goes into Service Manager. This is what you're looking at as our HP ITSMA suite. Marks the incident as a major incident, assigns it to himself, and upon doing this, something really interesting happens. That IT war room that would take hours upon hours sometimes to develop and to bring people in, and once you bring in, there's someone's kid crying in the background, and people are just they're not paying attention, it's already created for you. So not only do you have the right people at the right place, in the right context, you also have the chatbots there to help you do the heavy lifting and the tasks. All right, so the folks are pulled in, the front-end guys, the back-end guys, the devs, the DBAs, and now we start working. Again, using the power of collaboration with the chatbots. So anyone that joins the channel, anyone that gets pulled in, let's say ad hoc, you no longer have to stop the meeting. Hey guys, so-and-so joined in, let's take about 10 minutes to fill them in. They can use the chatbot, they can query it, and they can keep going. Question? That's where he actually comes in and talks about how the development works, right after me. Yep. Now, once the chatbot gives you the relevant information, anybody in the room sees it. So now we want to see, okay, so what can we do right now, and is there anything that we did before which resolved an incident just like this? So we use our Service Manager suite, we use Smart Analytics, and based on a description which is passed by the chatbot, we find out there was an incident previously, and we know exactly what was done to solve it. So now we take this flow, we use our operation orchestration chatbot, it's called Maestro. We take the flow name, we run it. Once we run the flow, we get confirmation that the flow ran, the ID, everything is given into the room. Once that's done, we get a positive feedback, it's executed, everything is up and running. And last but not least, our OpsBridge bot gives us the positive, letting us know that everything is up and running in the system using a database. All right? No need for a retrospective here. We close a ticket, we mark it as resolved, and the IT war room is done, and the major incident is resolved. Thank you. One slide. Which one was the PowerPoint? The PowerPoint? It's 8. Right. So lastly, I want to talk to you guys about a customer case study in which we use the power of MS Teams, the collaborative power of MS Teams, along with our chatbots and our ChatOps solution in order to achieve and see what they actually achieved. So the objective here was processes were taking too long. Tickets were taking too long to resolve. And really, they wanted a more efficient way of addressing incidents and resolving them. By harnessing the power of collaboration and visibility, along with chatbots, In about 6 months of deployment, University of Pretoria was able to reduce their mean time to repair by a significant number, 19%. As you can see, many other KPIs were reduced as well. Upwards of about 2,400 man-hours saved in IT, as well as the number of tickets open to in progress was reduced by about 41%. And that's really important because that's collaboration right there. That's when you bring in the people and people start working and they're excited to work and really to use the platform, use the bots, and really talk and collaborate. 62% increase in updates, meaningful updates to tickets, as well as one of the most important things, my favorite, is actually reuse of remediation. Once you have a full auditable trail, you know what was done before. All the chat history is there. Now you can reuse remediations. That way you're not duplicating work and you're not wasting time. All right. Thank you, guys. Again.
All right, thanks so much to Rahul and Rocky for coming up and sharing that with us a little bit. All right, so now we get into the meat of it. I know this gentleman was looking to get some technical stuff, so I'm going to dive right into it. So I'm not going to talk too much about the examples. I think the idea is that you guys have a lot of line of business, internal services, processes, and you want to integrate that into Teams, distribute that to your employees, and get them using those tools inside of Teams. So let's start to see how you can do that. So I'll talk a little bit about the capabilities, and what I'll do is I'll go into detail into a few of these, and then I'll show you the code behind with a sample app. So we've got the sample app. It's written in C#. And we're going to show you some of the code behind and how you can pull that together into a single package and distribute that functionality into Teams. So in terms of the workflow, for those that are unfamiliar with actually building an app, it starts with defining the app capabilities. So I'm going to show you the manifest. It's basically a JSON file that describes your app metadata and all of the capabilities that you want. So it's a bot, tab, connector, so on and so forth. Then, of course, you'll implement your capabilities and functionality, whether it's using the bot framework or using a web stack for your tab. You're hosting that. It's your own service. It's your own application. But we do provide SDKs in a few different languages to actually help make it simpler to build those apps. Lastly, testing. I'll show you how to do that by taking your package and sideloading that into Teams, and then you'll actually be able to interact with it just like I showed earlier in that demo. And then lastly, I do want to talk about this for a second. So I know that a lot of people have come to us and said, hey, you guys have a great set of capabilities. We're building these apps, but it's really hard to distribute it to our employees. Either we have to sideload it to one team at a time, or we have to publish it to the store. And I just want to make it available to my company or only to certain departments and certain security groups. So I want you guys to know that that's absolutely something that we are working on. It's one of the highest priorities for the team. I know there's a lot of value that you guys want to build, and you want the tools to be able to distribute that. So let's get into starting with tabs. So for those that have seen the tab earlier, it's really a rich surface area for your app. It's really as simple as embedding and integrating an existing web application. And you can see here, this example is about a tab in a channel that shows travel reservation information so that other people in the team can collaborate around it. Now, there are two types of tabs that I'm going to show and show you guys quickly the code behind: channel tabs and personal tabs. So you saw earlier in the demo that channel tabs are about team collaboration. Personal tabs, on the other hand, it's really about surfacing information relevant to just that user. So enough with the talking. Let's go and see how this thing starts to come together. All right. So this is all very real. I'm going to orient you guys around what's running. So I've got Visual Studio running. I've got the C# .NET solution running inside of Visual Studio. It's actually running in debug right now, localhost. And I'm using a tool called ngrok to actually redirect remote requests into localhost. So it's a really cool tool that creates a secure, introspectable tunnel so that Microsoft Teams, when you send a message to your bot or you try to load that tab up, it could actually have that be served out of localhost. So it's a really nifty tool. All right. So I'm going to start with the manifest file that I talked about a little bit earlier. So the manifest is just a simple JSON file that describes your app. So let's start here with some of the basic app properties. You've got developer info, you've got name, and you've got icons. So this is the set of properties that will show up in the Teams client when you load your app, basically what we refer to as the app profile. Next, we have the tab definitions. So you can see here as I scroll down, we've defined the static and the configurable tabs. Think about static and configurable as just synonyms for personal and channel tabs. Personal tabs basically point to a URL that our team's application can access. But it's more than just simply iframing or embedding it. There's actually a JavaScript library behind the scenes that allows you to integrate and get context in which that tab is running. And I'll show in a minute what that looks like and what kind of context you can get access to. Similarly, the configurable tabs. The configurable tab doesn't just point to the URL that shows up in the tab. It actually points to a config experience, because what's happening here is when a user configures a tab in a channel, they see in a window the content that they want to configure. And so this URL in this manifest is pointing to that content. All right, so let me show what that looks like when you actually sideload this inside of Teams really quickly. So I've got a folder here. I've got that manifest file, and I've got a couple of icon assets. And I've created this zip package that contains all those assets. I'm going to hop into Teams here. And I'm going back to my sales operation team. I click View Team. I click on Apps. So this is a list of all the apps that have been installed, added to this team. Down here in the bottom right corner, I'm going to press Sideload an App. Click on this simple sample task app. Click Open. After a couple seconds, it'll sideload that app. And now, notice something interesting that just happened, by the way. If I go into General, you'll see this message that just appeared here. So what happened was my service that's running in Visual Studio right now, but you can imagine hosting it in Azure or your web platform of your choice, has actually received an event that has been added to this team, and it's posted a proactive message into that team, giving kind of a little helpful welcome. You know, this is what I do. This is how I can offer value. What's cool about this is when users install that app, you can be proactive and introduce itself to the users of the team. I'll show you the configurable tab. So you can see here in the tab gallery, we now have this sample C# app showing up. If I click on that, you'll get a config experience inline. So earlier I was talking about that configuration experience. And so this is a fully customized embedded UI that you own that allows the user to choose what content to show up in a tab. Right? So let's say we're talking about pinning a travel reservation tab. In this case, you might want to choose which travel account you want to show in this tab. So there's a lot of customizability and flexibility here. So let's take a look at how those tabs came together. So going back into Visual Studio, I've got a couple of pages here. I'll start with the configure.html. So you saw in that form that popped up, we showed a few input boxes, and then I could save that tab to create it. This is the HTML page that went into that. And so really the one thing that I want to call your attention to is down here. There's a set of calls to this Microsoft Teams library. So I mentioned earlier we have a JavaScript SDK. And this is really the glue, the bridge that takes your existing web application and integrates it with the host container, which in this case is Teams. And so there's an initialization function. And what we're also doing is we are hooking into saving the tab. So when the user goes through that tab content, goes through the tab configuration flow and hits save, there's a series of callbacks that are facilitated between the child and the host container to go and actually take the context of that tab and save it so that when the user goes back and loads that tab, we know what to show. And this tab here is the actual content that shows up when the user goes into the tab. So I'll just demo that really quickly as well. So I go through this flow, go through the config experience, and call this sales plan. I'm not going to post to the channel about it. That'll create the tab, and you can see the content load up here. And so talking a little bit about tabs and some of the best practices, you want to really embed content that makes sense for a collaborative nature. You want to minimize context switching, and really you want to make sure that it fits well within that embedded frame. Another thing I want to quickly show is adding a new tab, and it's fairly straightforward. So Visual Studio here, I have a page, static tab.html. So this is a very simple web page, and what I've done is you can see here that I've integrated with the Microsoft Teams library. So first I call initialize, and then I have this method getContext. So The get context allows me to actually access information about who's looking at this tab right now. So I can get their AAD UPN, user principal name. I can get the current channel or user context. And then I can either surface that in the tab. In this case, you can see here, all I'm doing is printing that out using this jQuery statement. Or I can use that information to go query the graph or do any kind of back-end lookup. So what I'm going to do is, I actually already have this snippet. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to paste this into the manifest down here. So my list of static tabs, I'm going to add another one. I'm going to take this manifest file, stick it back into the package, and then I'm going to go back into Teams and sideload it again. So view team, apps. I'll kill this guy here. Sideload it again. Give that a couple of seconds. Slow Wi-Fi. There we go. You can see here another intro message was introduced because I've reinstalled this app. And then I'll go in my list of apps. So down here, you can see I have this sample app. I'm going to click on that. That gives me that personal app experience. And you can see here that we now have this My tab. And when it loads, you can see here the information that I wrote up. Again, I was using that context from the outer host, and we're feeding that into the tab application. In this case, I've got the UPN, which is actually grabbing the email address of the user that's logged in. And so you can start to think about how you can leverage that context that's within Teams to go and light up additional functionality inside of your tab application. All right, let's talk about bots a bit. I'm going to spend quite a bit on this in the next section. So we've already seen the sort of case study with ChatOps from Micro Focus. Really, this idea is being able to enable these workflows and tasks and commands within Microsoft Teams. And what's great about how we've done it is it's fully built on the Microsoft Bot Framework. So I'll show you what that looks like. So you're using the same .NET or Node.js SDKs that you would normally to build a bot with the bot framework, but we've actually added extensions. So we have a Microsoft Teams SDK that provides a set of extension methods to consume some of the richer functionality that we have in Teams. Things like rich cards with input elements on it, which I'll show in a second, dynamically updating messages, and compose extensions, which I'll also give you guys a peek at. So again, let's dive into what this actually looks like and how it works. So I'm going to start off by going into this channel, and I'm going to ping the bot. So you can see here that we have this bot called sample app bot, and with that mentions we autocomplete. So what's great is that as a user, I don't have to type out the full thing. I can just use this user experience to go and complete that. When I hit enter, you'll notice that we have a set of commands listed here. Now, what's great about this is, as a user, if I remember, hey, I'm going to talk to this bot, I don't have to memorize all of those commands. I don't have to remember, oh, yeah, there's a command to create a task, find a task, or to get help. So I can hit create, and I'll give it a task name. Remember to sync with engineering. So let's talk about what's happening here. So the message got sent out from Microsoft Teams to the bot framework. Bot framework then sent it to my service by first hitting ngrok, and then ngrok forwarded it to my local host. And to show you guys that I'm not lying, you can see here in the ngrok window that actually that post is hitting my service and it's coming locally. What's awesome about this too is that if you're quickly doing development and you're debugging, you don't have to all right, I'm going to do this thing, deploy to Azure, and then I have to do a remote debugging and attach a remote debugger, and it's super slow. I could just set a breakpoint here. And I'll go back into Teams. Task 1, 2, 3. And you can see here that it hit my debugger. And so this really simplifies the development, and we're taking advantage of a lot of those existing tools to enable developing for Teams. All right, so now let's talk about what's actually happening here. So this card that got created, we created the bot service returned a rich card. And one of the new features that I do want to mention for this session is the ability to attach rich inline input to these cards. So you guys that might be familiar with developing bots for Bot Framework, you can create cards with buttons and images and text. But now, if I click this update due date, I actually get an inline form. I can click on this, and I actually get a dialog that pops up where I can select a date. So I can change the due date for this item. So we have several different rich input types. We have the date time picker. We have a multi-select, so you can actually create a lightweight combo box on this card. And we also have a text input, so you can create things like surveys. You can create, if there was an expense report and the user approves or rejects it, they can provide a reason and do all of that inline. And so now you have these really cool conversational sort of hybrid experiences where it's not all just text commands back and forth. You can also start to mix inline UI, and we think that's really, really powerful. So let's see how this came together. So in the manifest here, I'm going to skip down past the tab section. We have the bot declaration. And so you'll notice that there's a bot ID field. Whether or not this bot is one way, only sends notifications. Whether it supports team and personal scope. In this case, it supports both. And then there's a list of commands. If you remember, I showed when I mentioned the bot name, it brought up that set of commands. This is where you define those. And so you just have to update the manifest to declare the different commands that you want your users to be able to auto-complete when they start typing to it. Now let's check out some of the code. So I mentioned earlier that all of this is built on the Microsoft Bot Framework. And so this is the main method that gets hit when a message comes in from the user. So if you type hi to the bot, it's going to come as an API request, as a post request into this endpoint. This request is going to be secured using the bot framework's authentication protocol. So effectively what's happening here is the incoming request from Microsoft via the bot framework is going to be signed using, it's going to include a JOT that is signed using Microsoft's private key. And with this attribute on this class, when that request comes in, that the class automatically takes care of validating that this request is legitimate. And the way that it actually does that is in this web config, I've got my bot framework's app ID and secret included in this config file. Now you might be asking, well, where did those come from? So before all of this, in the bot framework website, I registered a bot, right? So I went into this simple form, and I said, here's the name, here's the avatar, here's the description. And then I also gave it the callback endpoint, and I registered the credentials. So this is where I got the app ID and password. And you'll notice here that this endpoint right now is configured to point to my ngrok instance. And that's how I'm able to complete that loop and get the messages hitting my local host. So this method that I was talking about that handles the incoming messages from the user, it actually doesn't really do all that much. What it primarily does is almost like a top-level switch statement, and more or less delegates that to this dialog. So I'm going to talk about this dialog class a little bit more. The concept of a dialog when building bots is that it's basically the conversational state of your user interacting with your bot. So it's where you can define commands. It's where you wire up natural language. If you want to use something like Lewis.ai, you would actually, there's a special type, a subclass of the dialog that allows integrating directly with Lewis, so it handles the automatic intent and entity recognition. In this case, I've got a very simple dialog that's really just doing text parsing. So you can see here that I take in the incoming text, and then I check to see what the keyword is, whether it's a create or finding, assigning, linking, and then I pass it off to some helper methods. So let's take a look at this send task created message. So it's an asynchronous method, and what I'm doing here is I'm first constructing a message reply. I'm then using this data controller to look up the task object. Now, for this sample app, the data controller is really just mock data. But you can imagine hooking that up with your internal service or your own backend. And then I'm generating a card for this task item. So the card that I showed earlier with the rich input forms and input items is actually called Office 365 connector card. For those that are familiar with connectors, It's a super easy integration where you can post into channels using incoming webhooks. And what we've done here is we've taken that same rich messaging schema and format, and we've allowed bots to send that information as well. And so what's cool is that, if you've already integrated with Teams or Outlook using connectors, and you've built a connector that pumps in information in this format, you can actually completely reuse that code in order to send a message as a bot. So you don't have to think about, okay, I have to now write all this new logic to write messages in this new format. And then at the end here, this is the code to actually then post that message with that card back to the user. So some of the best practices around building a great experience. You want to think about what delivers value in a conversational context. Some of the mistakes that I've seen frequently is, you would take something that was really well served in UI, as a web page, as a dialogue, as a form, and then you basically conversationalize it, right? So you create a text interface over it. There's a lot of really great sessions about building bots at this conference, I'm sure, that you guys should check out. But kind of the 20-second version is think about how you can provide value by quickly completing tasks, whether it's looking up information, issuing commands. Rocky showed some great scenarios with ChatOps. Those are the perfect types of scenarios that you want to light up using bots. As I mentioned earlier, you can use the bot framework SDKs as well as the Teams extensions to make it easier so you don't have to integrate with the REST APIs directly. And then you also want to use the input menu, which I showed earlier, to keep your user on Rails, so they don't have to kind of discover and train themselves organically on the functionality that your bot provides. So the next capability that I want to dig into is compose extensions. Is there a question back here? Are you talking about the cards that show up in the channel? Or? Oh, you're talking about those commands. Yeah, so the question was whether these can be dynamic. So right now we only support a manifest-based declaration because these are really representing the top-level commands of the bot. Something that we are starting to work on is the dynamic one. So depending on what turn of the conversation you're in, those suggested actions or suggested commands can actually vary. Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, so you guys saw earlier I demoed the Bing News and the Trello extensions that allow you to pull content into the conversation. I'm going to show that really quickly with the sample app. So the sample app also has this capability. So if I do search tasks, I get this complete experience. And if I type in marketing, it'll pull down all the cards, and I can drop one into the chat. So talking a little bit about how we actually built this. Let's go back into the manifest for a second. So again, it starts off with defining the capability in the manifest, right? So we have a compose extension declaration here. And you'll notice that it's very simple. It's just really got a couple of key values here. It's got the bot ID, and it has the commands that it supports. Now the bot ID, for those that are wondering, the compose extension platform is actually built as an extension of the existing bot framework integration. What that means is if you've already written code to integrate with the bot framework securely to authenticate your user and to return content using the standard card system, you can basically reuse all of that in order to light up a compose extension. And so that service-to-service integration is entirely reused, and you don't have to think about standing up an entirely new service, doing a whole new auth model, writing all new code to generate responses. It really is just an extension to your existing bot, and vice versa. So if you've already built a compose extension, you can add natural language to it fairly easily. So let's go back to the messages controller. So as I mentioned, this is kind of that top-level router for user messages. If you'll notice here that there's another if statement that checks to see if this activity is of type invoke. And what that means is it basically checks to see is a user firing a compose extension request. So earlier when I typed @sample appbot search marketing, That came in as one of these requests to my service. We then check to see if it's a compose extension query. So this method is actually an extension to the Bot Builder SDK. So you can use the Microsoft Teams extension, and this is just a C# method extension to that existing class. And then we pass off to this helper class to go and get that response and feed it back to the end user. So this is the class that I'm talking about, this compose extension.cs. And the only method that really matters here is it's creating this compose extension response object. The compose extension response is a class that the Microsoft, the Teams SDK provides. So it's basically a helper object model, so you don't have to construct that JSON response body manually. And if you look at it here, I won't go into too much detail, but what's happening is that there is a standard schema that our compose extension platform requires. And so this code here is just generating that response using some of these helper methods. It's going through a loop and creating a set of responses. Again, this is mostly mocked up data. So it's just creating cards for each of those objects, and then it's returning that back to the end user. And so the point that I really want to land here is creating a bot, you've already got something that's conversational, does natural language. If you want to go and create a more UI-based extension out of that where users can quickly do query, pull content, and then stick that into their messages, it's very easy to go from one to the other capability. So you see an example here might be company resource, maybe team knowledge base or a wiki of some sort. Creating these kinds of lightweight extensions where users can quickly pull that information into their conversations is super powerful. So quickly talking about notifications and connectors. I mentioned connectors a little bit before. So it's a way to create simple incoming webhooks and pushing information into channels. And it's a great way for you to start integrating with the Teams platform without necessarily writing a full-fledged bot or compose extension. There are other sessions talking about connectors, talking about actionable messages. I definitely encourage you guys to check those out. What's great about connectors is they're fully supported in both Teams and Outlook. And so if you build a connector that you want to push into email, into the group email, as well as Teams, that's something that you can do with this platform. The activity feed I'll just briefly cover. So think about the activity feed in Teams as being sort of the user's notification hub. It's where if people ping you, send you IMs, like your messages, or mention you, it's what aggregates all that information across all of the users' teams and channels and chats. And the idea is that from an extensibility perspective, you can hook into that really easily. And it's really as simple as just adding an additional property to a message that your bot sends to the user. And we have some sample code examples of that. Lastly, talking about the Microsoft Graph for a second. So if you build a Teams app, you can, of course, integrate with the Microsoft Graph, and you can pull in that intelligence in terms of emails, documents, and calendar, just as you would with any other app that is registered with the Graph. There are a set of Teams-specific APIs that are already available today in beta with more coming soon. So listing teams, listing channels, and creating a channel. We've heard an ask to provide an API that allows creating a team and actually managing things like the roster, the channels, programmatically setting things like tabs, which apps are installed. There's a lot of automation and provisioning workflows that we know that in the enterprise people care deeply about. So that's something we're absolutely working on. And then lastly, we're also making it easier to integrate into your Teams app. So right now, if you've got a Teams app, you have a question?
Just a quick follow-up on that one. Do you have an expected time frame for the creating Teams API?
So Create Team is in active development. I can say that it is coming very soon. We can talk offline about some more specific timeframes. Yeah. That is probably the highest priority from a Graph API perspective for us. And then lastly, so I was mentioning that we're making it easier to integrate. So right now, if you build a Teams app and you want to pull in integrating with the Graph, let's say you want to query the user's calendar, right now it is a little bit having to do a little bit of duplication in terms of registering a different app ID in secret, and then there's a slightly different consent flow. So we know that there are some friction points there. We want to make that a little bit easier from a developer and from a user experience perspective. So this is kind of a summary of building a Teams app. You've seen now some of the code examples, both in terms of the tab and the web stack, as well as the bot compose extension being more of a server-side stack. This is kind of a list of those capabilities and how you can start to think about putting it all together. So the last thing that I do want to cover is a new feature that we rolled out just about a month and a half ago, which is the ability for your as an administrator of your organization to control which apps are available to your end users. And we know this is something that people deeply care about because from a security and compliance perspective, you want to make sure that you have complete control over what data is leaving the compliance boundary, and you want to feel safe and protected in your organization. So actually, let me go into a demo. So unfortunately, I had to run Chrome here because I've got multiple incognito things. So this is the Office 365 portal. I think a lot of folks are already familiar with it. If I go down here to Settings, click Services and Add-ins. Give it a second to load. I'll go to the Teams panel. And so these are all of the IT admin settings for Teams. This governs what functionality my end users get across all the Teams features, whether it's email hooks, third-party apps, of course, which I'll show in a second, whether they can integrate with external cloud storage providers like Dropbox and Google Drive, calling and meeting functionality. And so, for those that are not familiar with this, I think we do have breakout sessions that really go deep dive on this, and I encourage you guys to check those out. Let's take a look at the apps one. So there's a set of toggles here that govern what my end users see when they interact with third-party apps in Teams. The first one is whether external apps are allowed at all. So if I turn this off, this is basically a big on-off switch. If I turn this off, users will not see apps in Teams. They won't be able to interact with bots. They won't be able to interact with tabs, even ones that you build yourselves. You're basically saying, I don't want any of this stuff. There's another toggle that determines whether or not you can sideload external apps. So I showed sideloading earlier. This is a flag that controls whether or not users can do that. Because, well, if you don't want users to use app X, you probably don't want users to be able to sideload it themselves and circumvent you. So that's an obvious control that we have. And then this last control determines whether or not new apps. So let's say a new app flows through the submission pipeline built by Facebook. And you don't want those new apps to automatically show up to end users without you having a chance to look at it first. That's another control that we provide. Now, in this case, I've turned this toggle off. And what that gives me is actually a granular list of all of the apps that are in the Teams app catalog. So this is a dynamic list that's populated based on any app that we approve through the Office Store submission process. And so you can see the full list here. And these are some of the apps that you already saw in that catalog. Now, you'll notice that a number of them have been unchecked. So I've gone in and said, hey, you know what? I want to disable a whole bunch of bots because I'm concerned about data leaving our organization. And so I've unchecked those. And what will happen is, if you go into Teams, so this is another Teams tenant where I've turned these settings off. If I go back into apps, first of all, you'll see that this list is a lot shorter for featured ones. And then if I click on Discover and I go to the tab section, it's a much smaller list. So we've actually done the work to ensure that if you turn something off, we don't just keep it in Teams, and then when users try to use it, things break randomly. We actually try to be proactive about disabling some of those experiences so that the end users don't have the false expectations that something is supposed to work. We also provide server-side control and enforcement. So even if a user is somehow able to circumvent the client and use Fiddler to try to send a message to a bot or load that content, we disable that as well if that app is disabled. So really making sure that that full control is in place. Is there a question back there? Yeah, so right now, this apps UI, so this new Discover Apps UI, as we call it, as well as the full gallery with all of the capabilities, is something that's been in preview for a couple of months, and we're working on refining it. We're going to be shipping that very, very soon. Great, so that's it for the presentation. So you guys have seen apps, You've learned about how to build some of the app capabilities with some examples. We have a question here.
Regarding deployment options, so you have an option to silo that's on an individual team
Yep.
and on publishing apps to the global.
Yes.
Is there a company?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did mention this a little bit earlier. We are working on that. We recognize that as a super high priority, and that's going to unlock a lot of opportunities for enterprise developers. And so, yeah, that's absolutely in the works. And if you're around later, we can chat and we can talk about some of your requirements to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Awesome. There are a lot of other Office developer sessions. There's a lot of Microsoft Teams sessions. There's a full week of agenda ahead, so I really encourage you guys to attend those. And I'm around for questions as well. But thank you guys so much.